The baby's lips were turning blue. Tasha Monroe pressed her face against the rain-streaked window of St. Catherine's private hospital, watching the chaos unfold in the top-floor suite. Through the glass she counted them. 15 doctors in pristine white coats surrounded a tiny hospital crib, their faces twisted with panic and helplessness. Machines beeped in frantic rhythms. Nurses rushed back and forth with syringes and monitors. And in the center of it all, a man in an expensive gray suit fell to his knees beside the crib, his hands gripping the rails as his entire body shook. The baby, no more than 3 months old, lay impossibly still. Tasha's breath fogged the window as she watched the lead physician step back, shaking his head. Another doctor frantically adjusted in 4-line. A third doctor barked orders that no one seemed able to follow. They were all brilliant, she was sure. Trained at the best institutions. Years of experience between them. But the baby was dying and not one of them knew what to do. She shouldn't be here. She had no business standing in the rain outside a private hospital in her torn jacket and muddy sneakers, watching rich people's problems through a window. She should be looking for the shelter on Morrison Street before they closed intake for the night. She should be focused on surviving another day on the streets. But something held her there. Something in the way that baby's tiny chest barely moved. Something in the desperate angle of the father's shoulders. Something that whispered in a voice she tried to silence for 2 years. You know what's wrong. Inside the suite, one of the doctors was shouting now. She couldn't hear the words through the glass, but she could read his lips. Congenital defect. Heart failure. Nothing more to be done. The father's head dropped to the crib rail. His shoulders heaved. Tasha's fingers curled against the wet window. She knew that posture. She'd seen it before in a different hospital beside a different bed. She'd worn that same defeated curve of the spine when the doctors told her there was nothing more they could do for her mother. When they'd explained that without the expensive treatment, without the medications they couldn't afford, her mother would die. And her mother had died. Tasha had watched the life drain from the only person who'd ever loved her, helpless and broken and drowning in medical debt that would eventually cost her everything else. Her apartment. Her future. Her place at Lincoln Medical School where she'd been at the top of her class. The rain soaked through her jacket, cold water running down her spine, but Tasha didn't move. Inside, a nurse was crying. 2 doctors had stepped away from the crib, their faces resigned. The father pressed his forehead against the tiny mattress, and Tasha could see his lips moving. He was praying. 15 doctors, and not one of them saw what she saw. The baby's left foot. The slight twist in the ankle, barely visible beneath the hospital blanket. The way the infant's body curved just barely to one side. The pattern of the breathing, shallow and irregular in a specific rhythm that every one of those specialists was missing. It wasn't a heart defect. It was a compression issue. Neural, not cardiac. Tasha's medical training, rusty and dusty from 2 years of disuse, roared to life in her mind. She saw the anatomy charts she'd memorized. Heard her professors' voices explaining rare pediatric conditions that presented as cardiac distress but originated from spinal compression. Conditions that could kill a baby in minutes if not identified. Conditions that 15 cardiologists wouldn't think to look for because they were too specialized, too focused on the heart to see the real problem. She could save that baby. The thought hit her like a physical blow, stealing her breath. She could save that baby, but she was a homeless girl with no credentials, no proof of her training, no right to be anywhere near a medical facility. She'd been kicked out of medical school when she couldn't pay her tuition after her mother's medical bills consumed everything. Her license to practice, which she'd never even earned, was as impossible now as owning a house or eating 3 meals a day. But that baby was dying. Tasha's heart hammered against her ribs. Inside the suite, the father lifted his head. Even through the rain and the glass and the distance, Tasha could see his eyes. Red-rimmed, desperate, completely shattered. She'd seen those eyes in the mirror once. After her mother died. After the eviction notice. After the final rejection letter from the medical school when she'd begged them to let her finish her degree, to give her time to find the money somehow. Those eyes held no hope. They'd already accepted the worst. Tasha's legs moved before her mind caught up. She ran along the side of the building looking for an entrance, any entrance. The main doors were locked, security coded for the private wing. She tried a side door. Locked. Another. Locked. Think like you used to think. The service entrance. Every hospital had one, usually monitored but not always secured. She sprinted around the back of the building, her worn sneakers splashing through puddles, her breath coming in sharp gasps. There. A gray metal door with a small window. She grabbed the handle. It opened. The hallway inside was empty, lit with harsh fluorescent lights. Tasha's shoes squeaked on the polished floor as she ran, leaving wet footprints. She looked for signs, for arrows, for anything that would lead her to the private suites. 3rd floor. The elevator was too risky. She found the stairs and took them 2 at a time, her legs burning. When she burst through the 3rd floor stairwell door, an alarm shrieked to life. Security would come. She had minutes, maybe less. Tasha ran down the corridor, scanning room numbers. 301, 302, 303 there. Suite 308. Through the small window in the door, she could see the crowd of doctors, the frantic movement, the father still kneeling by the crib. She shoved the door open. Every head turned. 15 doctors and half a dozen nurses stared at the dripping, wild-eyed homeless girl who just invaded their sterile medical sanctuary. "Get out," one of the doctors barked immediately. "Security." But Tasha's eyes were on the father. On Julian Pierce, though she didn't know his name yet. His face was streaked with tears, his expensive suit wrinkled and disheveled. He looked at her with confusion and exhaustion and something else. Something that might have been the last ember of desperate hope. "I can save her," Tasha said. Her voice came out stronger than she felt. "I know what's wrong. This is a sterile medical facility," another doctor snapped. "You need to leave immediately." "She's dying because you're all looking at the wrong thing," Tasha said, moving toward the crib. 2 nurses moved to block her path. "It's not her heart. Look at her spine. Look at the curvature. She has a compression on her vagus nerve. That's why her heart is failing." The lead physician, a tall man with silver hair and cold eyes, stepped forward. "Young woman, I don't know who you are, but this baby has a congenital heart defect diagnosed by the best pediatric cardiologists in the country. Now leave before I have you arrested." "Then she'll die," Tasha said flatly. She looked past him, directly at Julian. "And you'll never know if I was right." Julian stood slowly. His eyes never left Tasha's face. Around them, the machines continued their desperate beeping. The baby's breathing grew more shallow. "Who are you?" Julian asked. His voice was rough, scraped raw. "Someone who lost everything to medicine," Tasha said. "Someone who knows what it's like to watch helplessly. And someone who can see what they can't." She pointed at the crib. "Your daughter has compression on her vagus nerve, probably from positioning in the womb that went undetected. It's affecting her autonomic nervous system, making her heart rate irregular. Every treatment they're giving her for cardiac issues is making it worse because they're not addressing the actual problem." "That's absurd," the silver-haired doctor said. "The MRI showed." "Did you do a detailed spinal MRI or just cardiac?" Tasha interrupted. "Did anyone check for neural compression? Did anyone look at anything other than her heart?" Silence fell over the room. The kind of silence that admitted an uncomfortable truth. Julian's eyes moved from Tasha to his daughter, lying so still in the crib, her lips that terrible shade of blue. "What would you do?" he asked quietly. "Mr. Pierce, you can't seriously be considering—" The silver-haired doctor began. "What would you do?" Julian repeated, louder now, still looking at Tasha. "I'd perform a specific manipulation," Tasha said. "It's delicate, but it's not surgical. If I'm right, her breathing will regulate almost immediately. Her heart rate will stabilize. If I'm wrong—" She swallowed hard. "If I'm wrong, you'll have lost maybe 3 minutes. But she doesn't have much more than that anyway." The machine's beeping was slowing, growing further apart. The sound of a little heart giving up. Julian looked at his daughter. At the 15 doctors who'd already told him there was nothing more to do. At the homeless girl with fire in her eyes and certainty in her voice. He stepped aside from the crib. "Do it," he said. "Mr. Pierce, I strongly advise against." The silver-haired doctor started. "I said do it," Julian repeated, his voice breaking. "Please." Tasha moved to the crib on shaking legs. She was aware of every eye on her, every breath held, every second ticking past. The baby, Ella, she would learn later, was so tiny. So fragile. Blue lips, pale skin, barely breathing. Tasha positioned her hands carefully. She'd studied this in her pediatric rotation. She'd practiced on models. She'd never done it on a real patient because she'd never finished her training. But her hands remembered. She applied gentle pressure at specific points along the infant's spine, feeling for the misalignment, the compression that was strangling the nerve that controlled so much of the baby's autonomic function. There. She felt it. A slight shift, barely perceptible, but enough to strangle vital signals from brain to body. With careful, precise movements, she manipulated the infant's position. Gentle traction. A tiny adjustment. Another. She was aware of someone timing her. 30 seconds. 45. Come on, she thought desperately. Come on, sweet baby. Come on. 1 minute. The room was silent except for the machines. And then Ella took a breath. A real breath. Deep and full. The monitors beeped faster. Stronger. Regular rhythm. Color flooded back into the tiny lips, pink replacing blue. The baby's eyes fluttered open and she let out a small, healthy cry. Tasha stepped back, her legs nearly giving out. The room erupted. Nurses gasped. Doctors lunged forward to check monitors, to examine the baby, to verify what had just happened. Julian Pierce stood frozen for one long moment, staring at his daughter who was crying and breathing and alive. Then he moved, gathering Ella into his arms with infinite gentleness, tears streaming down his face. He looked at Tasha over his daughter's head, and in his eyes was wonder and gratitude and a question so big it filled the entire room. "Who are you?" he whispered. Before Tasha could answer, her legs did give out. She sat down hard on the floor, adrenaline draining away, leaving her hollow and shaking. Security burst through the door, hands reaching for her. "Stop," Julian said, his voice sharp with command. The security guards froze. Julian looked at them while still cradling his daughter. "This woman just saved my child's life. No one touches her." He looked down at Tasha, sitting on his daughter's hospital room floor in her wet, torn clothes, shaking with exhaustion and relief and 2 years of accumulated grief. "Who are you?" he asked again, softer this time. "My name is Tasha Monroe," she said quietly. "And I used to be someone who saved lives." Have you ever witnessed someone with nothing give everything they had to save a stranger? What would you have done in Tasha's position? Would you have risked everything for someone you didn't know? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to see how this impossible moment changes 2 broken lives forever. The hospital room felt smaller now that the immediate crisis had passed. Most of the doctors had filtered out, some muttering to colleagues, others openly staring at Tasha with expressions ranging from disbelief to professional offense. The silver-haired lead physician remained, along with 2 younger specialists and several nurses who were carefully monitoring Ella's vitals. The baby was stable. More than stable. She was thriving. Her color was perfect, her breathing deep and even, her heart rate steady and strong. The monitors showed numbers that had been impossible just 10 minutes ago. Tasha sat in a chair someone had pushed under her, still dripping on the expensive carpet, watching Julian Pierce hold his daughter. He hadn't put her down. He stood by the window, swaying slightly, his face buried in Ella's blanket, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs of relief. The silver-haired doctor, whose nameplate read Dr. Harrison Mitchell, chief of pediatric cardiology, approached Tasha with an expression she couldn't quite read. Not angry but not grateful either. Something between professional curiosity and wounded pride. "That was an extremely unorthodox intervention," he said stiffly. "May I ask where you trained?" Tasha's throat tightened. "Lincoln Medical School." "I didn't finish." Dr. Mitchell's eyebrows rose. "Lincoln has an excellent program. Why didn't you complete it?" "Money," Tasha said simply. There was no point in elaborating. The story was common enough. Poor student, family tragedy, crushing debt, impossible choices. She was one of thousands. "And yet you remembered a technique that most pediatric specialists wouldn't even consider for this presentation," Dr. Mitchell said. He seemed to be struggling with something, his professional composure cracking slightly. "I've been practicing for 30 years. I completely missed it." "You were focused on the heart because that's your specialty," Tasha said, too tired to be diplomatic. "Sometimes being an expert means you stop seeing the basics." Dr. Mitchell's jaw tightened, but he nodded slowly. "You're right. And because of my oversight, we nearly lost this child." He paused, then extended his hand. "Thank you, Miss Monroe. You gave this family a miracle today." Tasha shook his hand, surprised. She'd expected defensiveness, anger even. Not this careful, humble acknowledgement. "We'll need to run tests," Dr. Mitchell continued, shifting back to clinical mode. "Detailed spinal scans to confirm your diagnosis and ensure there's no residual compression. But preliminary observations suggest you were absolutely correct." Julian finally turned from the window. His eyes were red, but his face held an intensity that made Tasha's breath catch. He was younger than she'd thought at first, maybe early 30s. Handsome in that polished way wealthy men often were, with sharp cheekbones and dark hair slightly gray at the temples despite his youth. But it was his eyes that held her. Dark brown, intelligent, and currently fixed on her with an attention that made her acutely aware of her dripping hair and muddy shoes. "Dr. Mitchell," Julian said quietly. Could you give us a moment? The doctor hesitated, glancing between Julian and Tasha, then nodded. Of course. We'll be right outside if you need anything. He gestured to the nurses and the room emptied, leaving only Julian, Ella, and Tasha. Julian carefully placed Ella back in the crib, now that she was stable enough to rest there. He adjusted her blanket, touched her tiny hand with one finger, then turned to face Tasha fully. You saved my daughter's life, he said. The words came out thick with emotion. I don't know how to. I can't. He stopped, pressing his palms against his eyes. I'm sorry. I can't think clearly. An hour ago I was planning her funeral. Now she's sleeping peacefully because a stranger appeared out of nowhere. I'm glad I could help, Tasha said. She needed to leave. Security had been kind enough not to remove her forcibly, but she didn't belong here. She never had. She stood up, and the movement made Julian's eyes sharpen. Where are you going? I should go. You need time with your daughter and I need to… What? Find a shelter bed? Search through restaurant dumpsters for dinner? I need to go. You're soaking wet, Julian said. And shaking. I'm fine. You're not fine. Julian moved closer, his eyes scanning her with the same intensity he'd used while watching her save his daughter. Tasha resisted the urge to step back. When did you last eat? That's none of your business. You're right. It's not. Julian pulled out his phone, typed something quickly, then put it away. But you saved my daughter, which makes it my business to make sure you're taken care of. A car will be downstairs in 5 minutes to take you to my home. You'll have a hot shower, clean clothes, and a meal. That's not negotiable. Tasha's pride flared hot in her chest. I don't need charity. It's not charity. It's gratitude. Julian's voice was gentle but firm. Please, let me do this. I can't repay what you did tonight, but I can make sure you're warm and fed. That's the absolute minimum. I don't. Tasha started, but her stomach chose that moment to growl audibly. She hadn't eaten since yesterday morning, and that had been half a stale bagel from a coffee shop trash can. Julian's expression softened. Please, he said again. For my peace of mind. I can't let you walk out of here into the rain when you just gave me everything. Tasha looked at Ella, sleeping peacefully in her crib. She thought about the cold streets, the shelter that was probably full by now, the long night ahead. She thought about her pride, which had kept her going through 2 years of homelessness but had also kept her isolated and alone. Kindness, her mother used to say, is not weakness. Accepting help is not defeat. Okay, Tasha said quietly. Thank you. Relief flooded Julian's face. Thank you. He pulled out his phone again, made a quick call. Robert? Yes, the baby's stable. It's a miracle. I need you to prepare the guest house. Full amenities. Have Maria make dinner. Something warm and substantial. He paused, glancing at Tasha. And call that boutique on 5th Street. Have them send over a complete wardrobe, women's clothing, casual and formal, sizes. He looked at Tasha questioningly. You don't need to. Tasha began. Sizes. Julian prompted gently. 8, Tasha said, feeling her cheeks burn. But really, just something clean is enough. Size 8, send variety, Julian said into the phone. Yes, tonight. I don't care if they're closed. Tell them it's for the woman who saved my daughter's life. Money is no object. He ended the call and looked at Tasha. Robert is my house manager. He'll have everything ready. I can't accept all that, Tasha protested. A shower and maybe some soup, but clothes and… Tasha. Julian said her name for the first time, and something in his tone made her stop talking. My daughter was dying. 15 specialists couldn't help her. You appeared like an angel in the rain and saved her life. If you think I'm going to let you leave here with anything less than everything you need, you don't understand what you did tonight. Tasha's throat tightened with emotion. She wasn't used to this. Wasn't used to someone seeing her as anything other than a problem to be avoided or a homeless person to be pitied from a distance. Julian Pierce was looking at her like she was extraordinary. I just did what anyone with medical training would do, she said. No. Julian's voice was firm. 15 people with medical training stood in this room and did nothing. You risked security, arrest, and humiliation to save a stranger's baby. That's not something anyone would do. That's something exceptional. A nurse knocked softly and entered. Mr. Pierce? The car you requested is downstairs. Julian nodded. Thank you. He looked at Tasha. Will you let me have you driven to my home? Will you accept a safe place to rest and recover? Every instinct Tasha had developed over 2 years on the streets screamed at her to refuse. To walk away. to maintain her independence and her walls. Rich men didn't just help homeless girls without expectations. There was always a catch. But when she looked at Julian, she didn't see calculation. She saw genuine gratitude and concern. And she was so tired. So cold. So hungry. Yes, she said. Thank you. 20 minutes later, Tasha sat in the back of the most luxurious car she'd ever seen, watching the rain-soaked city pass by the windows. The driver, an older man named Thomas who'd greeted her with respectful kindness, navigated smoothly through late-night traffic. Tasha's clothes were still damp, her hair dripping onto the leather seats that probably cost more than her entire college education. She felt wildly out of place like a stray cat in a palace. Her phone buzzed. She charged it 2 days ago at a library, and it barely held power anymore, but she still carried it. No one called. No one texted. But it was a link to her old life and she couldn't let it go. The text was from an unknown number. This is Julian Pierce. Thomas has my instructions to take you to my home. Please make yourself comfortable in the guest house. I'll join you once Ella is cleared to leave the hospital, probably tomorrow morning. Anything you need, ask Robert. Thank you again for my daughter's life. JP. Tasha read the message 3 times. The courtesy in it. The consideration. She typed a reply, thank you for your kindness. The response came immediately, you gave me everything. This is nothing. The car pulled through iron gates into a property that made Tasha's breath catch. The Pierce estate sprawled across what must have been acres of perfectly manicured grounds, even in the rain. The main house was a modern masterpiece of glass and stone, lit from within like a jewel. The guest house, which the car pulled up to, was itself larger than any place Tasha had ever lived. Thomas opened her door. Miss Monroe, Robert is waiting inside. He'll help you get settled. Tasha climbed out, looking up at the guest house. It had 2 stories, large windows, and a covered porch. Through the windows she could see soft lighting and elegant furniture. Miss Monroe? A man in his 60s stood in the doorway, smiling warmly. He wore slacks and a cardigan, looking more like someone's grandfather than household staff. I'm Robert. Welcome. Please come in out of the rain. Tasha mounted the steps on shaking legs. The moment she stepped inside, warmth enveloped her. The guest house was beautiful in an understated way. Soft blues and creams, comfortable furniture, art on the walls. It smelled like lavender and lemon polish. I've prepared the master bedroom for you, Robert said, gesturing to a staircase. There's a bathroom with a shower and fresh towels. Maria, our cook, has prepared dinner and left it warming in the kitchen. The clothing Mr. Pierce ordered should arrive within the hour. Is there anything else you need immediately? Tasha couldn't speak for a moment. When was the last time anyone had asked her what she needed? This is too much, she whispered. Robert's expression turned gentle. Miss Monroe, Mr. Pierce told me what you did tonight. There is no amount of comfort or kindness that could repay saving a child's life. Please accept this with the spirit it's given. You deserve rest and care. Tears burned behind Tasha's eyes. She blinked them back. Thank you. The shower is upstairs, first door on the right. I'll bring dinner up in 15 minutes, or would you prefer to eat downstairs? Upstairs is fine, Tasha said. She needed privacy. Needed a moment to process what was happening. She climbed the stairs, her wet shoes squishing on the hardwood. The bedroom was stunning. A king-size bed with a cloud-like comforter, windows overlooking gardens she couldn't see in the dark, a sitting area with a fireplace that was already lit, casting dancing shadows. The bathroom was marble and glass, with a shower that had multiple heads and controls Tasha didn't understand. She turned on the water, stripped off her wet, dirty clothes and stepped under the spray. The hot water hit her skin and Tasha's careful control shattered. She sank down in the shower, pulled her knees to her chest and sobbed. Great, heaving cries that she'd held back for 2 years. Grief for her mother. Anger at the unfairness of a world that destroyed people for being poor. Relief at being warm and safe even if just for tonight. Fear that this was temporary, that tomorrow she'd be back on the streets. She cried until the water ran cold, then forced herself to stand and wash properly. There were expensive soaps and shampoos, soft washcloths, everything she needed. She scrubbed away 2 years of grime and hopelessness. When she finally emerged, wrapped in a towel that was softer than clouds, she found clean clothes laid out on the bed. Simple things. Soft blue sweatpants, a white t-shirt, thick socks. A note rested on top. For tonight. Your wardrobe will arrive soon. Robert. Tasha dressed, then found dinner waiting on a tray by the fireplace. Homemade soup, thick with vegetables and chicken. Fresh bread with butter. A green salad. apple pie with vanilla ice cream, water in a crystal glass. She ate slowly, savoring every bite, trying not to cry again. The food was perfect, warm and filling and made with care. A soft knock came at the door. "Miss Monroe? The clothing has arrived. May I bring it up?" "Yes, please." Robert entered with an armful of shopping bags, followed by a younger woman carrying more. They spent 10 minutes hanging things in the closet, folding others into drawers, organizing shoes and accessories. "If anything doesn't fit or isn't to your taste, just let us know," Robert said. "Mr. Pierce wants you to be comfortable." When they left, Tasha opened the closet. It was full. Jeans and sweaters. Dresses in blue and green and red. A warm coat. Running shoes and boots. Pajamas in soft cotton. Undergarments still tagged. Everything clean and new and in her size. She pulled out a pair of jeans and a green sweater, held them against herself, looked in the mirror. The woman staring back looked different from the one who'd pressed her face to a hospital window hours ago. Clean. Cared for. Almost like her old self. Tasha changed into the pajamas, soft blue cotton that felt like heaven, and climbed into the enormous bed. The sheets were crisp and cool, the comforter warm without being heavy. Outside, rain pattered against the windows. She should be afraid. Should be wondering what Julian Pierce would want from her in return. Should be planning her escape before expectations became demands. But she was too tired, too overwhelmed, too full and warm and comfortable. As sleep pulled her under, Tasha's last thought was of Julian's face when Ella took that first real breath. The joy. The relief. The gratitude. Maybe, just maybe, kindness could exist without strings attached. Maybe hope wasn't foolish after all. Sunlight woke Tasha, streaming through windows she'd forgotten to cover. For a confused moment, she didn't know where she was. The softness beneath her, the warmth, the clean smell of expensive detergent. Then memory flooded back and she sat up quickly, heart racing. The guest house. Julian Pierce. The baby. A clock on the nightstand read 9:47 a.m. Tasha couldn't remember the last time she'd slept past dawn. On the streets, sleeping too long was dangerous. You had to be alert, always moving, always aware. She climbed out of bed, still wearing the soft blue pajamas, and looked out the window. In daylight, the Pierce estate was breathtaking. Manicured gardens stretched in every direction, winter bare trees standing like sentinels. The main house sparkled in morning sun, its glass walls reflecting sky and clouds. A soft knock came at the bedroom door. "Miss Monroe? Are you awake? I have breakfast." "Come in," Tasha called, suddenly self-conscious about accepting even more. Robert entered with a tray. Fresh fruit, yogurt, toast with jam, scrambled eggs, orange juice and coffee. The smell made Tasha's mouth water despite the substantial dinner she'd eaten last night. "Good morning," Robert said cheerfully, setting the tray on a small table by the fireplace. "I hope you slept well." "Too well," Tasha admitted. "I should probably get going." "Mr. Pierce is hoping you'll stay," Robert said gently. "He returned from the hospital an hour ago with Ella. She's doing wonderfully, by the way. All the tests confirmed your diagnosis. You quite literally saved her life." He smiled. "Mr. Pierce would like to speak with you this morning if you're willing. He's in the main house." Tasha's stomach nodded. Here it was. The expectations. The price for kindness. What does he want? Robert's expression turned kind. "Only to thank you properly and talk, Miss Monroe. Mr. Pierce is a good man. You have nothing to fear here." After Robert left, Tasha ate breakfast slowly, thinking. She could leave. Should leave. Get back to the shelter circuit before they forgot her face. Reclaim her spot under the Morrison Street Bridge if necessary. But Julian Pierce had asked to speak with her. And despite her instincts, she was curious. More than curious. She wanted to see Ella to confirm the baby was truly thriving. Wanted to understand what happened next. She showered again, unable to resist the luxury of hot water and soap, then dressed in the jeans and green sweater she'd laid out last night. They fit perfectly. She brushed her teeth with the new toothbrush Robert had left, combed her damp hair, and looked at herself in the mirror. She looked human again. Not broken. Not desperate. Just a woman in her 20s, maybe a little too thin, with tired eyes but clean clothes and brushed hair. Tasha took a deep breath and went downstairs. Robert was waiting in the foyer. "Ready?" he asked. "As I'll ever be." He led her across a stone path to the main house. Inside, it was even more stunning than the guest house. High ceilings, art that probably cost more than most people made in a year, furniture that looked like it belonged in museums. But it also felt warm somehow. There were photos everywhere. Ella as a newborn, then at 1 month, 2 months. A beautiful woman with kind eyes appeared in many of them, always holding Ella, always smiling. "Mr. Pierce is in the sunroom," Robert said, leading her through the house. "Would you like coffee? Tea?" "I'm fine, thank you." The sunroom was all windows overlooking the gardens. Julian stood with his back to the door, looking out at the grounds, Ella asleep in his arms. He'd changed from his wrinkled suit into dark jeans and a maroon sweater. His dark hair was damp, recently showered. He looked younger in casual clothes and more tired. Like he hadn't slept at all. "Mr. Pierce? Miss Monroe is here." Julian turned and his face transformed when he saw Tasha. Relief and gladness and something that made Tasha's breath catch. "Tasha," he said warmly. "Thank you for coming. Please sit." He gestured to comfortable chairs arranged around a low table. "And please call me Julian. After what you did, we're past formality." Tasha sat carefully, her eyes drawn to Ella. The baby looked perfect. Pink cheeks, peaceful sleep, tiny hands curled into fists. Nothing like the blue-lipped infant from last night. "She's beautiful," Tasha said softly. "She is." Julian's voice was thick with emotion. "And she's alive because of you." He sat down across from Tasha, adjusting Ella gently. "The doctors ran every test imaginable this morning. You were absolutely right. Vagus nerve compression from positioning in the womb. They'd done cardiac MRIs, echocardiograms, genetic testing. Everything except the one thing that mattered." He shook his head. 15 specialists, and it took someone who didn't even finish medical school to see what we all missed. "Sometimes fresh eyes help," Tasha said. It was more than fresh eyes. It was knowledge and intuition and courage. Julian looked at her intently. "Tell me about yourself, Tasha. Robert said you were reluctant to stay, that you wanted to leave this morning. Why?" Tasha shifted uncomfortably. "Because this isn't my world. I don't belong here. You belonged in that hospital room last night. That was different. That was medicine. And this is gratitude." Julian's voice was gentle but firm. "I want to help you, Tasha. I want to understand what happened that took you from medical school to standing outside a hospital in the rain. Will you tell me?" Tasha looked at Ella, sleeping peacefully. She thought about the rules she'd made for herself on the streets. Don't trust. Don't share. Don't let anyone close. But those rules had kept her alive, not helped her live. "My mother got sick," she said quietly. "Pancreatic cancer. I was in my 3rd year at Lincoln Medical School. Top of my class. Full academic scholarship, but it didn't cover living expenses, and I was working 2 jobs to make ends meet." She took a deep breath. "Mom didn't have insurance. She was a waitress. Never made enough to afford it. When she got diagnosed, the bills came fast. Chemotherapy, radiation, medications. I dropped to part-time at school to work more hours to help pay." Julian listened intently, saying nothing, his eyes never leaving her face. "It wasn't enough," Tasha continued. "We lost our apartment. I moved us into a single room in a boarding house. I was studying between shifts at a diner and a cleaning company. The school told me I had to return to full-time or lose my spot. I begged for an extension. They said no." Her voice hardened. "Mom died 3 weeks later. I'd spent every penny we had on treatment that didn't work. I couldn't pay the boarding house rent. Couldn't pay the tuition. The school expelled me for non-payment. I lost everything in about 6 weeks. I'm so sorry," Julian said softly. "Everyone's sorry. Sorry doesn't pay bills or bring people back." Tasha heard the bitterness in her voice and tried to soften it. "I tried to get back on my feet. But without a degree I couldn't get medical work. And with no address I couldn't get regular work. I slept in my car until it got repossessed for missed payments. Then I was on the streets. For how long? 2 years. I learned the shelters, the soup kitchens, the safe places to sleep. I learned how to be invisible." Tasha met his eyes. "I also learned that people don't help homeless people without wanting something in return. So forgive me if I'm waiting for you to tell me what you want from me." Julian's expression flickered with something that might have been pain. "I don't want anything from you except to help you get your life back." "Why?" Tasha challenged. "You don't know me." "Because you saved my daughter," Julian said simply. "Because you're clearly brilliant and compassionate and you deserve better than sleeping on streets. Because I can help, so I should help." He paused. "My wife, Ella's mother, died giving birth to her. Complications no one predicted. In one moment, I gained a daughter and lost the love of my life." Tasha's chest tightened. "I'm sorry." "The last 6 months have been the darkest of my life," Julian continued. "Trying to keep Ella alive while grieving Rachel. watching my baby girl struggle with health issues that no one could explain. Last night I'd accepted that I was going to lose her too, that I'd have to bury my daughter next to my wife. His voice broke. Then you appeared. And you gave me a future I thought was gone. Tears burned behind Tasha's eyes. I'm glad I could help. So let me help you. Julian leaned forward. Let me give you back what you lost. I have resources, connections, money. I can get you readmitted to medical school. I can pay for your degree. I can give you a place to live while you finish your training. All I ask is that you accept it. Tasha's heart raced. That's too much. It's nothing compared to what you gave me. I didn't save her for a reward. I know. That's exactly why you deserve one. Julian's eyes were earnest. Tasha, you have a gift. You saw what trained specialists couldn't see. You acted when no one else would. The world needs doctors like you. I'm just offering to remove the obstacles that kept you from becoming one. I don't take handouts, Tasha said, but her voice wavered. It's not a handout. It's an investment in someone who's already proven their worth. Julian adjusted Ella in his arms. Stay here in the guest house. Recover. Let me contact Lincoln Medical School. Let me talk to admissions offices. Let me help you get back what never should have been taken from you. Tasha wanted to say no. Wanted to protect herself with refusal and independence. But she looked at Ella, healthy and peaceful, and thought about the years of medical knowledge going to waste in her head. Thought about other babies who might need someone to see what specialists missed. Thought about the doctor she dreamed of becoming before life shattered those dreams. Why do you care so much? She whispered. Because kindness matters, Julian said. Because Rachel would have done the same thing if our positions were reversed. Because Ella will grow up knowing that a stranger with nothing gave her everything, and I want to teach her that we repay that kind of selflessness. Tasha's resistance crumbled. Okay, she said quietly. Okay, I'll stay. I'll let you help. Thank you. Relief flooded Julian's face. Thank you for letting me. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, Ella sleeping peacefully between them, until the baby stirred and let out a small cry. Feeding time, Julian said, standing. Would you like to hold her while I prepare her bottle? Tasha's breath caught. Please, Julian said, and carefully transferred his daughter into Tasha's arms. Ella was warm and solid and perfect. She blinked up at Tasha with dark eyes, yawned, then settled against her chest like she belonged there. Tasha felt something crack open in her chest, some wall she'd built to survive the streets. Hello, beautiful girl, she whispered. You gave us quite a scare last night. Ella made a small cooing sound, and Tasha smiled for the first time in longer than she could remember. When Julian returned with a bottle, he found Tasha swaying gently, humming a soft tune, Ella gazing up at her with infant adoration. You're a natural, Julian said. I always wanted to be a pediatrician, Tasha admitted. I love kids. Then stay, Julian said. Help me with Ella while you get back on your feet. You saved her life. I trust you with her more than anyone. And there it was. Not payment. Not expectations. Just mutual help. Tasha caring for a baby who needed specialized attention. Julian providing the resources to rebuild a shattered life. Okay, Tasha said again. I'll stay. Julian's smile was like sunrise. Welcome home, Tasha Monroe. 3 days later, Tasha stood in the guest house kitchen, making herself tea, still marveling at the surreal turn her life had taken. Clean clothes. Regular meals. A warm bed. It felt like a dream she'd wake from any moment, back on cold pavement under a thin blanket. But every morning she woke in the comfortable bedroom. Every morning Robert brought breakfast. Every morning she reminded herself this was real. Julian had been busy with lawyers and phone calls, working to unravel the bureaucratic nightmare of getting her readmitted to medical school. Tasha spent her days in the guest house, reading medical journals Julian had delivered, refreshing her knowledge, preparing for whatever came next. She also spent time with Ella. Julian brought the baby over every afternoon, and Tasha checked her carefully, monitoring her recovery, ensuring no complications developed from the nerve compression. But mostly she just held her, talked to her, fell completely in love with this tiny human who'd given her purpose again. On the 4th morning, Julian knocked on the guest house door himself instead of sending Robert. Good morning, Tasha said, surprised. Is everything okay? Everything's wonderful. Julian's eyes were bright with excitement. Can I come in? I have news. They sat in the living room and Julian pulled out his phone, barely containing his enthusiasm. I spent yesterday in meetings with Lincoln Medical School's administration. I made very generous donations to their scholarship fund. I may have also pointed out that they expelled one of their brightest students over financial hardship, which doesn't look great for their mission statement. Tasha's heart raced. And they're willing to readmit you for the spring semester. Full scholarship, no tuition. They'll credit your previous coursework. You can complete your degree in 18 months. Tasha couldn't breathe. Are you serious? Completely serious. You start in 3 weeks. Julian was grinning now. There's more. I spoke with Dr. Mitchell at St. Catherine's. After reviewing your intervention with Ella, he's offering you a part-time position as a medical assistant in his pediatric department. Paid position, flexible hours around your classes. It'll give you practical experience and look excellent on your residency applications. Tears streamed down Tasha's face. I don't know what to say. Say yes. Say you'll take this second chance and become the doctor you were always meant to be. Yes, Tasha whispered. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Julian's expression softened. You're thanking me for giving you back what never should have been taken. The medical community should be thanking you for not giving up, for keeping your knowledge alive through 2 years of hardship. They sat in emotional silence for a moment before Julian spoke again. There's one more thing. I'd like to hire you officially as Ella's medical care assistant. She needs monitoring as she recovers, and I trust you more than anyone. Separate from the medical assistant position. This would include room and board here, plus a salary. You'd be doing me a tremendous favor. Julian, you're already doing so much. I'm giving you jobs you're qualified for and paying you fairly for work that benefits me. That's not charity. That's employment. His tone was gentle but firm. Please say yes. Tasha thought about it. Living here meant stability while she finished school. Working with Ella meant staying close to the baby she'd already bonded with. The salary meant she could save money, build a future, never be that vulnerable again. Yes, she said. I'd be honored. Excellent. Julian stood, smiling. Robert will handle employment paperwork. Dr. Mitchell expects you Monday to start training. And we should celebrate tonight. Dinner at the main house? I'd like you to meet Maria properly, and Ella seems to miss you when you're not around. That evening, Tasha dressed carefully in one of the dresses from her new wardrobe, a simple blue dress that made her feel pretty and professional. She walked to the main house as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Maria, the cook, greeted her warmly in the kitchen. She was a round woman in her 50s with laugh lines around her eyes and flour dusting her apron. So you're the miracle worker, Maria said, pulling Tasha into a hug before she could protest. Julian told us everything. Thank God you were there. I just did what I was trained to do. You did what your heart told you to do, Maria corrected. Now sit. Dinner's almost ready and I made your favorites. You don't know my favorites, Tasha pointed out. Julian told me you liked the chicken soup. So I made more, plus roasted chicken, garlic potatoes, green beans, and apple pie for dessert. The dining room was elegant but comfortable, with a long wooden table that could seat 12 but was set intimately for 2 at one end. Ella slept in a bassinet nearby, peaceful and pink-cheeked. Julian entered wearing dark slacks and a blue shirt, looking relaxed and happy. Over dinner they talked easily. Julian told her about his business, a tech company specializing in medical software that he'd built from the ground up. Tasha told him about her favorite medical school professors, the rotations she'd loved, the specialties she'd considered. Why pediatrics? Julian asked. Because kids are resilient, Tasha said. They heal faster, bounce back stronger. And they're honest. Adults lie to doctors all the time. Kids tell you exactly what hurts and trust you to fix it. She paused. Also, I like the idea of catching problems early. Giving kids long, healthy lives. You're going to be an amazing doctor. I hope so. Tasha looked at Ella. She's my second chance. If I hadn't seen her through that window? You did see her. You acted. That's what matters. Julian's expression turned serious. Tasha, I want you to know you can stay here as long as you need. Through medical school, residency, beyond. You're not a temporary guest. You're family now. The word caught Tasha off guard. Family. She hadn't had family since her mother died. Thank you, she managed. After dinner, Julian taught Tasha how to prepare Ella's bottles, showed her the schedule of feedings and naps, explained the baby's preferences and quirks. Tasha absorbed it all, her medical training and natural instincts combining into perfect care. When Ella woke and fussed, Tasha picked her up instinctively, swaying and humming. The baby settled immediately, gazing up at her with trusting eyes. She loves you, Julian said softly. I love her too, Tasha admitted. Is that okay? It's more than okay. It's perfect. Over the following weeks, Tasha settled into her new life with surprising ease. She worked at the hospital 3 days a week, shadowing Dr. Mitchell, learning pediatric protocols, rebuilding her clinical confidence. She spent her other days studying, preparing for classes that would start in 2 weeks, reviewing material she'd once known by heart. And every day she spent hours with Ella. Feeding her, monitoring her recovery, playing with her, watching her grow stronger and healthier. The baby was thriving now, all traces of her near-death crisis erased by proper treatment and attentive care. Julian was there too, always kind, always respectful, always treating Tasha like an equal despite their vastly different circumstances. They had dinner together most evenings, talking about their days, laughing at Ella's antics, building a comfortable companionship. If you've been moved by Tasha's journey from the streets to a second chance at her dreams, make sure you subscribe and drop a comment below. What would you do with a second chance like this? Your engagement helps share stories of hope and resilience with others who need them. Robert and Maria quickly became friends, teaching Tasha the rhythms of the household, including her in their easy camaraderie. Thomas, the driver, insisted on teaching her how to drive Julian's cars, just in case she ever needed to get somewhere quickly. The household wrapped around Tasha like a warm blanket, and slowly, carefully, she began to trust that this was real, that she wouldn't wake up on cold pavement. That kindness didn't always have a price. One evening, 2 weeks into her new life, Julian found her in the guest house library, surrounded by medical textbooks, making notes for her upcoming classes. "You're going to give yourself a headache," he said, smiling. "I need to be ready. It's been 2 years. I'm rusty. You saved my daughter's life with that rusty knowledge. I think you'll be fine." Julian sat down across from her. "I wanted to tell you something. Dr. Mitchell called today. He's recommending you for a pediatric research team he's assembling. It's voluntary, unpaid, but it would look incredible on your residency applications." "Really?" Tasha's eyes widened. "He'd recommend me?" "He was very impressed with your work this week. Said you have instincts most residents don't develop for years." Julian paused. "He also apologized for not seeing what you saw in Ella's case. Said it was a humbling reminder that expertise can sometimes blind you to simple solutions. That was generous of him. He's a good man. Proud but good. And he sees your potential." Julian leaned forward. "Tasha, you're going to have opportunities now. Real chances to become the doctor you always dreamed of being. I want you to take every one of them without worrying about obligations to me or Ella. We'll be fine." "I want to be here for Ella," Tasha said firmly. "She's important to me. And you're important to her. To both of us." Julian's eyes held something warm, something that made Tasha's heart skip. "You've brought life back to this house. Rachel's death left everything cold and sad. Ella's health crisis made it worse. Then you appeared and suddenly there's hope again. Laughter. Purpose. You're giving me too much credit." "I'm giving you exactly the credit you deserve." Julian stood. "Get some rest. Classes start Monday and you need to be sharp." After he left, Tasha sat in the quiet library thinking about how much had changed. 3 weeks ago she was homeless and hopeless. Now she had a home, a job, a path back to her dreams and people who cared about her. She looked at the photo on the desk, one Robert had framed for her. Tasha holding Ella, both of them smiling, Julian in the background watching them with an expression of contentment. They looked like a family. The thought didn't scare her as much as it should have. Tasha's first day back at medical school felt like stepping into a dream she'd mourned for 2 years. The campus looked the same, brick buildings and wide lawns, students hurrying between classes with coffee cups and textbooks. But everything felt different now. She wasn't the broke student working 3 jobs and worrying about rent. She had stability, support, a future that felt possible instead of impossible. Her classmates were younger now, people who'd started the program after she'd been forced to leave. They looked at her curiously when the professor introduced her as a returning student with exceptional circumstances. Tasha caught whispered conversations, saw sideways glances, but she didn't care. She was here. That was what mattered. The coursework was challenging but familiar. Her brain, sharp despite 2 years of disuse, grabbed onto concepts and facts with hungry efficiency. In her very first anatomy practical, she identified structures faster than students who'd never left, her hands steady and sure. "You're doing really well," one of her classmates, a friendly young woman named Beth, said after class. "Seriously impressive for someone who's been away." "I never stopped studying," Tasha said. It was true in a way. She'd read discarded medical journals and library trash cans, reviewed concepts in her head during long, cold nights. Medicine had been her anchor when everything else fell apart. At the hospital, her work with Dr. Mitchell was equally rewarding. She shadowed him on rounds, observing his interactions with young patients and their worried parents. She assisted with examinations, learned new protocols, felt her confidence rebuilding with every shift. "You have excellent instincts," Dr. Mitchell told her one afternoon. "That's something you can't teach. You either see the whole patient or you don't. You do." Evenings at the Pierce estate became Tasha's favorite time. She'd return from classes or the hospital to find Ella awake and playful, and they'd spend an hour together before dinner. The baby was growing so fast, becoming more alert and responsive every day. When Tasha entered the room, Ella's face would light up with recognition and joy. "She knows you're special," Julian said one evening, watching Tasha make silly faces that sent Ella into giggles. "She's the special one," Tasha replied, bouncing the baby gently. "Look at her. Perfect and healthy. Hard to believe she was so sick just a month ago. Thanks to you." Tasha was getting used to Julian's gratitude, though it still made her uncomfortable sometimes. He had a way of looking at her that made her feel seen in a way she hadn't experienced since her mother died. Not pity. Not charity. Just genuine appreciation and warmth. They developed a comfortable routine. Dinner together most nights, unless Julian had business obligations. Easy conversation ranging from medical ethics to terrible reality television that Maria loved and they both pretended not to watch. Collaborative care of Ella, trading off feeding and playtime, consulting each other on every decision about the baby's health. It felt domestic, comfortable, like something Tasha had given up hoping for. One evening, about 6 weeks into her new life, Julian brought wine to dinner. Not expensive vintage, just something casual and light. They sat in the sunroom after eating, Ella asleep in her bassinet, watching the sun set over the gardens. "Can I ask you something personal?" Julian said suddenly. Tasha tensed slightly. "Okay. What was your mother like?" The question surprised her. People rarely asked about her mother. "She was wonderful. Kind, funny, worked 3 jobs to keep us afloat. She never complained, never made me feel guilty about college expenses. Just supported me." Tasha's throat tightened. "When she got sick, she tried to hide it. Didn't want to burden me. By the time I found out, the cancer was stage 4. I'm sorry." "Me too." Tasha took a sip of wine. She would have loved this. Knowing I got back into medical school. Seeing me with Ella. She always wanted grandchildren. The words came out before Tasha thought about them and she flushed. "I mean, not that. I didn't mean." "I know what you meant," Julian said gently. "It's okay." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment before Julian spoke again. "Rachel was pregnant when I met her. Not with Ella. She had a miscarriage at 12 weeks. It devastated her." Tasha looked at him, surprised. Julian rarely spoke about his late wife beyond basic facts. "We'd been married for 2 years before she got pregnant again," he continued. "We were so careful. Best doctors, constant monitoring. Everything went perfectly until delivery. Then something just went wrong. The doctors couldn't stop the bleeding. They saved Ella, but they couldn't save Rachel." His voice cracked. "I held my daughter for the first time while my wife died in the next room. Julian, I'm so sorry. 4 months, I couldn't look at Ella without thinking about what she cost me. Isn't that terrible?" Julian's face twisted with old guilt. "I loved her, but I also resented her. Then when she got sick, I thought it was punishment. For not being grateful enough. For not loving her enough to overcome my grief." "That's not how illness works," Tasha said firmly. "Ella's condition had nothing to do with your feelings. You know that, right?" "Intellectually, yes. Emotionally?" He shook his head. "When you saved her, you didn't just save my daughter. You saved me from becoming someone I'd hate. Someone who let grief turn him bitter and cold." Tasha reached across the space between them and took his hand. "It felt natural, right? You're a good father, Julian. You love Ella. That's obvious." "I love her more now than I thought possible," he admitted. "And part of that is because of you. Watching you with her, seeing how you care for her, it taught me how to do the same without the shadow of grief distorting everything." They sat hand in hand as darkness fell, the connection between them shifting into something deeper than gratitude, more complex than friendship. Over the following weeks, Tasha's life continued to transform. Her grades were excellent, top of every class. Dr. Mitchell increased her responsibilities at the hospital, letting her take patient histories, assist with minor procedures, interact directly with families. The research opportunity he'd mentioned became reality, a study on pediatric autonomic disorders that seemed designed specifically around Ella's case. You should publish on your intervention, Dr. Mitchell suggested during one research meeting. Document Ella's case, your diagnostic reasoning, the treatment. It could help other doctors recognize this presentation. I didn't do anything special, Tasha protested. You saw what 15 specialists missed. That's extremely special. And it could save other children's lives. He fixed her with a stern look. Part of being a good doctor is sharing knowledge, Miss Monroe. Don't let modesty prevent you from contributing to the field. Tasha agreed, and spent her evenings writing the case study with Julian's permission. He read her drafts, offered feedback, helped her articulate the diagnostic process. Working together late into the night, they'd talk about medicine and ethics and the frustrating gaps in healthcare access. The system that destroyed your life shouldn't exist, Julian said one night. No one should have to choose between education and caring for a sick parent. It's barbaric. But it does exist, Tasha replied. For millions of people. I was lucky. You helped me. Most people don't get that. Then we should change it. Julian's eyes lit with passion. My company's software helps hospitals manage patient data. What if we expanded it? Created systems to connect patients with financial assistance, sliding scale care, charitable resources? What if we built tools to prevent what happened to you? That would be amazing. Then let's do it. You know the problems from experience. I have the technical expertise and money. We could create something meaningful. They talked for hours, sketching ideas, building visions of healthcare systems that serve people instead of bankrupting them. Tasha felt alive in a way she hadn't since before her mother got sick. Like she had purpose beyond survival. 3 months into her medical school return, Tasha came home from an evening class to find Julian and Ella in the guest house living room. Julian looked nervous, Ella dressed in a frilly pink outfit. What's going on? Tasha asked. I have something to show you, Julian said. He pulled out his laptop and turned it toward her. On the screen was a website. The Pierce Foundation for Medical Education Access. I established it this morning. Full-ride scholarships for students who've lost funding due to family medical crises. Emergency grants for medical expenses that threaten educational continuity. Legal support for appealing expulsions based on financial hardship. Tasha's eyes filled with tears. Julian, you inspired it. Your story, what you went through, it's happening to other students right now. This foundation will help them. He paused. I'm naming you as the founding board member and patient advocate. If you'll accept. Of course I'll accept. Tasha was crying now, not bothering to hide it. This is incredible. You're incredible. Julian stood, still holding Ella. You took tragedy and turned it into purpose. You saved my daughter and then showed me how to honor that gift by helping others. I can never repay you, Tasha, but I can try to pay it forward. Tasha crossed the room and hugged them both, Julian and Ella, this unexpected family that had healed her broken heart. Julian's free arm came around her, holding her close, and for a long moment they stood together in perfect understanding. When they pulled apart, something had shifted. The air felt charged, full of unspoken feelings and possibilities neither was quite ready to name. But it was there. Growing. Undeniable. Thank you, Tasha whispered. For everything. Thank you, Julian replied, for saving our lives. Spring arrived at the Pierce estate in an explosion of color. Cherry blossoms lined the driveway, tulips carpeted the gardens, and the gray winter gloom lifted into bright, warm sunshine. Tasha felt the change in her bones, like she was blooming alongside the flowers. She'd been living at the estate for 4 months now. 4 months of medical school, hospital work, and evenings with Julian and Ella. 4 months of slowly, carefully letting herself trust that this was real. That she wasn't going to lose everything again. But more than that, 4 months of falling for Julian Pierce without admitting it to herself. It was in small moments. The way he smiled when she entered a room. How he listened to her opinions on medicine and business with genuine interest. The careful way he respected her independence while still offering support. The nights they stayed up late talking, finding out they shared the same sense of humor, the same values, the same hopes for making the world better. Tasha tried to ignore it. He was her employer, her benefactor. He'd lost his wife less than a year ago. Getting involved would be complicated, probably inappropriate, definitely risky. But her heart didn't care about logic. One Saturday morning in April, Julian knocked on the guest house door earlier than usual. Are you busy today? He asked when Tasha answered. Just studying. Why? I thought we could take Ella to the park. It's beautiful out and she's never been to a real playground. He looked almost shy. I could use the company. If you're free. I'd love to. An hour later, they loaded into one of Julian's cars, a casual SUV rather than the formal sedan Thomas usually drove. Julian insisted on driving himself, and Tasha sat in back next to Ella's car seat, making faces that sent the baby into delighted giggles. The park was perfect. Green lawns, old trees providing shade, a modern playground with equipment for toddlers. Julian spread a blanket in the shade while Tasha carefully lifted Ella from her seat. At 7 months old, Ella was a happy, healthy baby who bore no trace of her near-death crisis. She could sit up on her own now, babbled constantly, and greeted every new experience with joyful curiosity. Tasha adored her completely. They spent 2 hours at the park. Tasha pushed Ella in the baby swing, both of them laughing at the sensation. Julian took photos, capturing Ella's expressions of wonder and Tasha's unguarded happiness. They had a picnic lunch that Maria had packed, sitting on the blanket with Ella between them, making silly conversation and enjoying the sunshine. Other families were at the park and several people smiled at them, clearly assuming they were a family unit. Mother, father, baby. The assumption should have made Tasha uncomfortable, but it didn't. It felt natural. This was a good idea, Tasha said, watching Ella reach for a dandelion with chubby fingers. I've been wanting to do normal things with her, Julian admitted. Not just medical monitoring and careful routines. Just play. Just enjoy her. He looked at Tasha. It's easier with you here. More fun. For me too. Their eyes held for a moment too long and Tasha's heart raced. She looked away first, focusing on Ella, but she could feel Julian's gaze lingering. On the drive home, Ella fell asleep immediately, exhausted from sun and play. The car was quiet, just the soft sound of the engine and the baby's peaceful breathing. Tasha, Julian said softly, can I ask you something? Sure. Are you happy? Here, in this life. Yes, Tasha said immediately. Happier than I've been in years. Why? I want to make sure you don't feel obligated to stay. That this is what you want, not just what circumstances forced on you. Tasha thought about it carefully. At first, I stayed because I didn't have anywhere else to go. But now, I stay because this feels like home. Because I love working with Ella. Because medical school is everything I hoped it would be. Because I wake up every day excited instead of just surviving. Good, Julian said quietly. I'm glad. They didn't speak again until they reached the estate, but the silence felt full of things neither was ready to say aloud. That evening, after Ella was asleep and dinner was finished, Julian asked Tasha to join him in his study. It was a room she'd only been in once before, all dark wood and leather, books lining every wall. A fire burned in the fireplace despite the mild spring evening. I wanted to show you something, Julian said, pulling out a folder. The Foundation's first grant recipients. We're funding 12 students this semester. 12 people who won't have to choose between school and family. Tasha flipped through the files. Students from across the country, all with stories similar to hers. Medical emergencies, financial devastation, schools that wouldn't wait. Now they had second chances. This is wonderful, she said. There's more. Julian handed her another document. I established an endowment. Enough to fund the foundation in perpetuity. Every year we'll help more students. Every year we'll prevent more tragedies like yours. Tasha's vision blurred with tears. Julian, it's right. It's what I should have been doing with my wealth all along. He moved closer. You showed me that, Tasha. You showed me what really matters. The air between them felt electric. Tasha was acutely aware of how close he was standing, the warmth radiating from him, the intensity in his eyes. Julian, she started, not sure what she wanted to say. I know the timing is complicated, he said softly. I know I'm still grieving Rachel and you're still rebuilding your life and there are power dynamics to consider. But Tasha, I need you to know. He took a breath. I have feelings for you. Real feelings. I don't expect you to reciprocate. I just needed to be honest. Tasha's heart felt like it might burst from her chest. I have feelings for you too, she whispered. I've been trying not to. Trying to convince myself it's gratitude or circumstance or anything except what it actually is. Which is love, Tasha said, the word falling into the space between them like a confession. I'm falling in love with you. With you and Ella both. Julian's face transformed with joy and relief. Really? Really? But I'm scared. Everything good in my life has been taken away. I'm terrified of letting myself have this only to lose it. I'm scared too, Julian admitted. Scared of betraying Rachel's memory. Scared of moving too fast. Scared of messing this up because I want it so much. He reached out, carefully taking Tasha's hand. But I'm more scared of not trying. Of letting fear keep me from something that could be beautiful. Tasha looked at their joined hands, his large and warm around her smaller, trembling fingers. What do? We take it slow. We give ourselves permission to feel what we're feeling. We build something real and solid, with no pressure and no expectations. Julian lifted her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles gently. We let love happen naturally. I'd like that, Tasha said. Julian pulled her into a careful hug, and Tasha melted into it, feeling safe and cherished and hopeful. They stood together by the fireplace, holding each other, letting themselves acknowledge what had been growing for months. When they finally pulled apart, Julian smiled, a real smile that lit his whole face. I should let you get back. You have studying to do. I should check on Ella first. They walked to the nursery together, hands loosely clasped. Ella slept peacefully in her crib, one tiny fist curled by her cheek, the mobile above her turning slowly in the breeze from the window. She's perfect, Tasha whispered. She is. Because of you. Julian looked at Tasha with such tenderness it made her breath catch. You saved her life and then you saved mine. I can never thank you enough. You've given me everything, Tasha replied. A home, a future, a family. That's everything. They stood together watching Ella sleep, and Tasha felt something settle deep in her chest. Belonging. Oh, love. Over the next few weeks, things between Julian and Tasha shifted into something new and wonderful. They were careful, mindful of Ella's needs and the complexities of their situation, but they let themselves be happy. Julian started joining Tasha for her morning runs around the estate grounds. They'd push Ella in her jogging stroller, talking and laughing, stealing quick kisses when the baby wasn't looking. Maria and Robert pretended not to notice but smiled knowingly whenever they were together. Julian attended Tasha's case presentation at medical school, where she discussed Ella's condition and treatment to a lecture hall full of students and professors. Her analysis was brilliant, her delivery confident. When she finished, the room erupted in applause. Julian caught her eye from the back row and mouthed, "I'm proud of you." Tasha invited Julian to her shift at the hospital one day, and he watched her work with young patients, seeing her clinical skills and natural compassion in action. Watching her, he fell even more in love with her dedication and heart. They had their first official date 6 weeks after admitting their feelings. Julian made reservations at an elegant restaurant downtown, and Tasha wore a red dress from her wardrobe, feeling pretty and nervous and excited. Over dinner they talked about everything and nothing. Dreams and fears. Favorite books and terrible movies. Childhood memories and future hopes. I want to open a clinic someday, Tasha said. Free care for people who can't afford it. Homeless people, uninsured people, anyone who needs help. I'll fund it, Julian said immediately. When you're ready, we'll make it happen. You can't just fund every dream I have. Watch me, Julian said, smiling. Tasha, I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. Let me use it for something meaningful. Let me help you change lives the way you changed mine. On the drive home, Julian held Tasha's hand across the console. When they reached the estate, he walked her to the guest house door like a proper gentleman. Thank you for tonight, Tasha said. Thank you for giving me a reason to smile again. Julian leaned down, and this time when he kissed her, it wasn't just a quick brush of lips. It was real and deep and full of promise. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Tasha whispered, I love you. I love you too, Julian replied. So much. They stood on the doorstep, holding each other, feeling the rightness of finally admitting what had been true for months. Inside the main house, Ella woke from her evening nap and let out a happy cry. They could hear it through the still night air and they both laughed. She has timing, Julian said. She really does. They walked back to the main house together, hand in hand, ready to care for the baby who'd brought them together. As they entered the nursery and Ella's face lit up seeing them both, Tasha thought about how far she'd come. From homeless and hopeless to loved and purposeful. Everything she'd lost, she'd found again. And so much more. 8 months after saving Ella's life, Tasha received a letter from Lincoln Medical School. She'd been nominated for the Dr. Sarah Richardson Award, given annually to the student demonstrating exceptional clinical acumen and compassionate patient care. The nomination came from her professors, who'd been consistently impressed by her performance since returning. This is incredible, Julian said when she showed him the letter. They were in the main house living room, Ella playing on a blanket between them. Are you going to accept? I don't know. It feels strange being nominated for an award when I left under such terrible circumstances. You didn't leave. You were expelled for being poor and having a family emergency. That's not the same thing. Julian's jaw tightened. Have they ever apologized for that? No. I got the readmission letter, but it was just administrative. No acknowledgement of what they did. Then maybe it's time they did acknowledge it. The next day Julian made some phone calls. Tasha didn't know the details, but 3 days later she received a request to meet with the Dean of Lincoln Medical School, Dr. Patricia Chen. You don't have to go if you don't want to, Julian said. I just wanted them to face what they did. No, I want to go, Tasha said. I want to look them in the eye and hear what they have to say. Julian insisted on driving her to the meeting. They sat in the car outside the administration building, and Tasha felt herself transported back to 2 years ago. She'd stood outside this same building, crying, clutching an expulsion letter, completely lost. You're not that person anymore, Julian said, reading her expression. You're Dr. Monroe now. Almost Dr. Monroe anyway. You're brilliant and accomplished, and they're lucky to have you back. Tasha squeezed his hand, drew strength from his presence, and walked into the building. Dean Chen's office was exactly as Tasha remembered. Books everywhere, diplomas on the wall, photos of Chen with various dignitaries and medical professionals. The dean herself stood when Tasha entered, extending her hand. Miss Monroe. Thank you for coming. It's Tasha, please? Tasha. Dean Chen gestured to a chair. I wanted to meet with you personally to discuss your reinstatement and your remarkable progress this year. Okay. Dean Chen took a breath, and something in her expression shifted. She looked uncomfortable. I also wanted to apologize. When you were expelled 2 years ago, it was a failure on our part. We have policies for financial hardship, for family emergencies, but they weren't properly communicated or applied in your case. You fell through the cracks, and that's unacceptable. Tasha hadn't expected this. Thank you for saying that. It's not enough. You were one of our brightest students. Your professors raved about your potential. And we turned you out during the worst crisis of your life because of bureaucratic inflexibility. Dean Chen pulled out a file. I've been reviewing your case with our financial aid department and the board of directors. We should have granted you emergency status. We should have deferred your tuition. We should have helped instead of expelling you. Yes, you should have, Tasha said quietly. I lost everything. My education, my housing, my future. I spent 2 years homeless because no one at this institution cared enough to bend the rules. I know. And I'm deeply sorry. Dean Chen leaned forward. I can't undo what happened. But I can tell you that we've changed our policies because of your case. We now have automatic emergency provisions for students facing medical crises in their families. We have a hardship fund. We have advisors trained to recognize and assist students in crisis. It won't help you, but it will help others. It was more than Tasha had expected. More than she dared hope for. That's good. I'm glad. Your return to Lincoln has been nothing short of exceptional, Dean Chen continued. Your grades are perfect. Your clinical work is outstanding. Your professors say you have a gift for diagnosis that most physicians never develop. And your case study on pediatric vagus nerve compression is being published in the Journal of Pediatric Medicine. You're doing groundbreaking work. I'm just doing what I was trained to do. You're doing far more than that. Which brings me to the real reason I wanted to meet. Dean Chen pulled out another document. We'd like to offer you a position after graduation. A pediatric residency here at Lincoln Medical Center. It's one of the most competitive residencies in the country, and you'd be guaranteed acceptance. Tasha's breath caught. Really? Really? You've earned it. And Tasha, I want you to know that this institution failed you when you needed help. We're offering you this opportunity not as charity, but because you deserve it. You're going to be an extraordinary doctor. Tears burned behind Tasha's eyes. Thank you. I accept. When she left the building, Julian was waiting by the car holding Ella. He took one look at Tasha's face and smiled. Good meeting? The best meeting. Tasha told him everything as they drove home. The apology, the policy changes, the residency offer. Julian listened intently, occasionally reaching over to squeeze her hand. I'm so proud of you, he said when she finished. Not surprised, but so proud. It feels like closure, Tasha admitted. Like that chapter of my life is finally finished. Now you can write the next chapter. That evening they celebrated with a special dinner. Maria made Tasha's favorite foods, Robert opened champagne, and they toasted to residency acceptance and new beginnings. Ella, now 9 months old and sitting up confidently, banged her hands on the high chair tray in what seemed like her own celebration. After dinner, when Ella was asleep and the household quiet, Julian asked Tasha to take a walk with him through the gardens. The spring evening was mild, flowers perfuming the air, stars visible in the clear sky. They walked hand in hand in comfortable silence until Julian stopped by a small reflecting pool surrounded by roses. "Tasha," he said, "I need to tell you something." His serious tone made her heart skip. "Okay. When Rachel died, I thought my life was over. I thought I'd never be happy again, never want to move forward. I was just existing, going through motions, waiting for Ella to grow up so I'd have a purpose." He turned to face her fully. "Then you appeared. And you didn't just save Ella's life. You saved mine. You reminded me what living looks like. What joy feels like. What love can be." Tasha's throat tightened with emotion. "Julian, I know we said we'd take things slow. I know I'm still healing from losing Rachel and you're rebuilding your life. But Tasha, I don't want slow anymore. I want forever. I want you and me and Ella as a real family. I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep beside you every night. I want to watch you become the incredible doctor you're meant to be, and I want to support you every step of the way." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Tasha's heart stopped. "I'm not asking you to rush," Julian said, opening the box to reveal a beautiful diamond ring, simple and elegant. "I'm asking you to promise me a future. To say that when you're ready, when the time is right, you'll marry me. Will you?" Tasha looked at the ring, then at Julian's face, open and vulnerable and full of love. She thought about everything she'd been through. The loss, the despair, the years of hopelessness. And then the miracle. Julian and Ella appearing in her life like gifts she never expected. She'd been so afraid to trust good things. So certain they'd be taken away. But standing here, looking at this man who'd given her everything and asked for nothing except to love her, Tasha realized that fear was the past. This was the future. "Yes," she said, her voice strong and sure. "Yes, I'll marry you. Not someday. Not when I'm ready. No, I'm ready now." Julian's face transformed with joy. He slipped the ring onto her finger, then pulled her into a kiss that felt like coming home. When they finally broke apart, both laughing and crying, he whispered, "I love you so much. I love you too. You and Ella both. You're my family." They walked back to the house together, engaged and euphoric, ready to start there forever. When they entered the nursery to check on Ella, the baby was awake, gurgling happily to herself. She saw them and reached up with both arms, wanting to be held. Julian lifted her carefully, and the three of them stood together in the soft light of the nursery, a family united by miracle and love and unshakable commitment. "Welcome home," Julian whispered to Tasha. "I'm already home," she replied. The engagement announcement happened quietly. No grand press release, no social media fanfare. Just a family dinner where Julian and Tasha shared their news with Robert, Maria, and Thomas. The household staff erupted in cheers, Maria crying happy tears while insisting she'd known all along, Robert proposing an immediate toast with the finest wine from Julian's collection. "We'll keep it private for now," Julian said. "Let Tasha finish this semester without media attention. We'll plan the wedding for after her graduation next year." But Tasha surprised him. "Actually, I don't want to wait a year. I want to get married this summer. Something small and intimate, just family and close friends. Is that okay?" Julian's eyes lit up. "More than okay. Perfect." The spring semester flew by in a blur of classes, hospital shifts, wedding planning, and loving the family she'd found. Tasha continued excelling academically, her professors consistently praising her diagnostic skills and patient rapport. At the hospital, Dr. Mitchell increased her responsibilities further, allowing her to lead rounds occasionally and make preliminary diagnoses under supervision. "You're going to be an asset to whatever hospital gets you for residency," Dr. Mitchell said one day. "Although I'm hoping you'll stay with us." "That's the plan," Tasha confirmed. "Lincoln Medical Center offered me a pediatric residency position starting next July." "Excellent choice. And speaking of excellence," Dr. Mitchell handed her an envelope. "Your case study has been accepted for presentation at the National Pediatric Medicine Conference this June. They want you to present your findings on vagus nerve compression in infants." Tasha's eyes widened. "Seriously? Seriously? It's a significant achievement, Miss Monroe. Presenting at a national conference while still a student is remarkable." That evening, Tasha burst into the main house waving the acceptance letter, finding Julian in his home office working on foundation business. "I'm presenting at the national conference," she announced. Julian jumped up, grabbing her and spinning her around. That's amazing. When? June 15th. 2 weeks before graduation. Then I'm coming with you. We'll make it a trip. Bring Ella, explore the city, celebrate your success. He kissed her soundly. I'm so proud of you. Ella, now 10 months old and determined to walk, pulled herself up on Julian's pant leg and babbled insistently. Tasha scooped her up and the baby planted wet kisses on her cheek. What do you think, sweet girl? Tasha asked. Want to go to a medical conference? Ella babbled something that sounded enthusiastic, making them both laugh. Wedding planning progressed smoothly, mainly because Tasha and Julian both wanted the same thing. Simple, meaningful, focused on love rather than spectacle. They decided on an outdoor ceremony in the estate gardens in August, after Tasha's conference presentation and before her final semester of medical school. Small guest list, Tasha insisted. Medical school friends, Dr. Mitchell and his wife, Robert, Maria, Thomas. Your business partners if you want, but no obligation. That sounds perfect, Julian agreed. All I care about is marrying you. Everything else is just details. They spent an afternoon touring the gardens with a wedding planner, choosing the spot by the rose garden where Julian had proposed. Maria insisted on catering, brushing off suggestions of professional caterers with affectionate indignation. A string quartet would provide music. White folding chairs for guests, an arch covered in flowers for the ceremony. Simple and beautiful. Tasha found her dress at a small boutique, a flowing white gown with delicate lace sleeves that made her feel like a princess. When she tried it on for Maria and Beth from medical school, they both cried. You look beautiful, Maria said. Julian's going to lose his mind when he sees you. It's perfect, Beth agreed. Simple but stunning. Just like you. As summer approached, Tasha felt herself blooming alongside the season. Her confidence grew with every successful patient interaction, every perfect exam score, every moment of loving and being loved by Julian and Ella. The scared, homeless girl felt like a distant memory. In her place was a woman who knew her worth, trusted her skills, and believed in her future. The national conference was held in Chicago in mid-June. Julian rented a suite at a luxury hotel, and they flew up with Ella 2 days before Tasha's presentation. She spent hours rehearsing in the hotel room while Julian entertained Ella, making sure she had every detail perfect. You're going to be brilliant, Julian assured her. Just talk about what you know. The audience is lucky to hear from you. The presentation day arrived with perfect weather. The conference was held in a massive convention center, thousands of medical professionals from across the country gathering to share research and innovations. Tasha's session was in the afternoon, and she spent the morning obsessively reviewing her notes. Julian stayed with her until she had to go backstage, Ella on his hip, both of them wearing matching encouraging smiles. You've got this, he said, kissing her cheek. I'll be in the front row. Tasha walked onto the stage to a lecture hall packed with physicians, researchers, and medical students. For one moment, standing at the podium looking out at hundreds of faces, her old insecurities tried to surface. Who was she to be teaching these accomplished professionals? Then she saw Julian and Ella in the front row. Julian gave her a thumbs up. Ella waved enthusiastically. Tasha smiled, took a breath, and began. She walked through Ella's case methodically. Initial presentation, failed cardiac interventions, her unconventional diagnostic approach, the treatment, and the remarkable recovery. She discussed the anatomical basis for vagus nerve compression, the challenges of recognizing it, the simple but effective intervention. She presented follow-up data showing Ella's complete recovery and included recommendations for other physicians facing similar presentations. Her delivery was clear, confident, and engaging. When she finished, the room erupted in applause. Physicians stood. Colleagues nodded appreciatively. The moderator called for questions, and Tasha fielded them expertly, drawing on both her medical training and her intimate knowledge of Ella's specific case. That was extraordinary, Dr. Mitchell said afterward, finding her in the hallway. You presented like a seasoned professional, not a student. You should be very proud. Thank you. I was terrified. You didn't show it. He smiled. I have colleagues asking about you. Where you're doing residency, whether you're considering research positions. You made quite an impression. Julian appeared with Ella, both wearing matching grins. You were spectacular, he said, pulling her into a hug. Everyone was completely captivated. That evening they celebrated with dinner at the hotel restaurant. Ella was in a high chair between them, happily destroying a bowl of pasta, while Julian raised his glass in a toast. To Tasha, who saves lives and changes the world. I'm honored to be marrying you. To family, Tasha replied, her heart full. To second chances and new beginnings. They clinked glasses and Ella banged her spoon in what seemed like agreement. Back in their suite later, with Ella asleep in the adjoining bedroom, Julian and Tasha stood on the balcony overlooking Chicago's glittering skyline. "I keep thinking about where I was a year ago," Tasha said quietly. "Homeless, hopeless, invisible. If someone had told me I'd be here now, presenting at a national conference, engaged to an incredible man, loved and secure and happy, I wouldn't have believed them." "You did the work," Julian said. "You saved Ella, but you also saved yourself. You had the courage to accept help, to trust again, to build a new life. That's all you. We did it together." Tasha turned to face him. "You gave me the opportunity, but you also gave me love. You saw me when the rest of the world looked away. That changed everything." Julian pulled her close. "You're extraordinary, Tasha Monroe. The world just needed time to catch up and realize it." They stood together under the stars, holding each other, feeling the rightness of their love and the promise of their future. In 2 months they'd be married. In 1 year, Tasha would be Dr. Monroe. In their lifetime together, they'd changed countless lives through the foundation, through Tasha's medical work, through raising Ella with values of compassion and service. Everything they'd lost, they'd found again. Everything they dreamed of was becoming real. Love had led them here. Love would carry them forward. Tasha graduated from Lincoln Medical School on a perfect June morning. She walked across the stage in her cap and gown, received her diploma from Dean Chin, and heard her name called with distinction as the recipient of the Dr. Sarah Richardson Award for Excellence in Clinical Medicine. Julian, holding Ella, cheered so loudly that other families turned to look. Maria, Robert, and Thomas were there too, sitting in the family section, beaming with pride. Beth and Tasha's other classmates hugged her afterward, everyone celebrating the culmination of years of hard work and dedication. "Dr. Monroe," Julian said, testing out the title. "I like the sound of that." "So do I," Tasha admitted. She still had to complete her residency, but the medical degree was hers. Official. Permanent. No one could take it away. The graduation party at the Pierce estate that evening was intimate and joyful. Maria cooked Tasha's favorite foods. Robert gave a toast about watching Tasha transform from a scared young woman into a confident physician. Thomas presented her with a leather medical bag. "For house calls," he said with a wink. Dr. Mitchell and his wife attended, and over dinner he made an announcement. "Tasha, I've been asked to serve as the Director of Pediatric Education at Lincoln Medical Center. Assembling a team to train the next generation of pediatricians, and I want you to be part of it. After you complete residency, of course." "I'd be honored," Tasha said, overwhelmed. "You'll be teaching medical students while maintaining a clinical practice. Using your experience to train others to see what specialists might miss. It's perfect for your skills." After the guests left and Ella was asleep, Julian found Tasha in the guest house, which she still thought of as her place even though she spent most nights in the main house now. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Just thinking." Tasha was sitting in the library looking at the framed photo on the desk. Her and Ella and Julian, taken months ago, all of them smiling. Julian sat beside her. "About what?" "About how different my life is now. How much has changed." "Is that good or bad?" "So good it scares me sometimes." Tasha looked at him. "I'm marrying you in 6 weeks. Starting residency in 3 weeks. Building a family. A year ago I owned nothing but the clothes on my back. Now I have everything." "You always had everything," Julian said gently. "You had brilliant mind, a compassionate heart, incredible skills. You just lacked opportunity. I'm glad I could provide that, but Tasha, you did the rest. You earned every achievement, every success. Don't diminish that." "I'm not diminishing it. I'm just grateful." She took his hand. "For you, for Ella, for this life. I don't want to take it for granted." "You won't. That's not who you are." Julian pulled her close. "You remember what matters. That's why you're going to be an amazing doctor, an amazing wife, and an amazing mother to Ella." The word mother made Tasha's breath catch. "Is that what I am now? Her mother?" "If you want to be." "Ella doesn't remember Rachel. You're the only mother she's ever known. You've been there for every milestone, every laugh, every tear. You feed her and comfort her and love her." Julian's voice was thick with emotion. "Rachel would be grateful that someone so wonderful is loving our daughter." "I know I am." Tears streamed down Tasha's face. "I want to be her mom. I love her so much." "Then you are. We'll make it official when we get married. Adoption paperwork is already prepared if you want it." "I want it," Tasha whispered. "I want everything." The weeks before the wedding flew by. Tasha started her residency at Lincoln Medical Center, long shifts and intensive training, but she loved every exhausting minute. She was learning from the best physicians, gaining hands-on experience, building confidence with every patient interaction. Julian was supportive of her schedule, never complaining about the long hours or last-minute changes. He and Ella would bring dinner to the hospital sometimes, eating in the cafeteria together, Ella charming every nurse and doctor who passed by. Wedding preparations continued around Tasha's shifts. Final fittings for her dress. Confirming details with the string quartet. Reviewing the ceremony with the officiant, a kind woman who specialized in meaningful, personal weddings. "Tell me about your love story," the officiant asked during one planning meeting. Julian and Tasha looked at each other, smiled, and began talking. They told her about the hospital, the dying baby, the homeless girl who appeared like a miracle. About gratitude that became friendship, friendship that became love. About healing and hope and second chances. "That's beautiful," the officiant said, wiping her eyes. "I'll incorporate that into the ceremony. This is going to be special." The wedding day arrived with perfect summer weather. Warm but not hot, clear blue sky, gentle breeze. The gardens looked spectacular, flowers in full bloom, the rose-covered arch positioned perfectly for sunset photos. Tasha got ready in the guest house with Beth and Maria helping. She put on her dress, let Maria style her hair in soft curls, applied minimal makeup because Julian always said she looked beautiful without it. When she looked in the mirror, she saw a woman transformed. Not by the dress or hair or makeup, but by love and purpose. She looked happy. Genuinely, deeply happy. "Your mother would be so proud," Maria said, squeezing her hand. "I wish she could see this." "She can," Maria assured her. "And she's smiling." Beth walked Tasha down the aisle, since Tasha had no father figure to do it. The path through the gardens was lined with white rose petals. The small group of guests stood as Tasha appeared, but she only had eyes for Julian. He stood under the flower-covered arch in a dark gray suit, holding Ella in her tiny white dress. When he saw Tasha walking toward him, his face crumpled with emotion. Tears streamed down his cheeks. Tasha reached him and took his free hand. "Hi," she whispered. "Hi," he whispered back. "You're so beautiful." Ella reached for Tasha, babbling happily, and they both laughed. The officiant cleared her throat, smiling. "We're gathered here to witness the union of two people who found each other in the most extraordinary circumstances. Their love story begins with selflessness and courage, with a stranger willing to risk everything to save a child she didn't know. It continues with gratitude and healing, with two wounded souls helping each other find hope again. Today we celebrate not just a marriage, but the creation of a family built on love, trust, and unwavering commitment." The ceremony was short and beautiful. They exchanged vows they'd written themselves. Julian promised to support Tasha's dreams, to love her through every challenge, to be her partner in building a life of purpose and meaning. Tasha promised to love Julian and Ella with everything she had, to honor Rachel's memory by caring for her daughter, to build a family rooted in kindness and compassion. When the officiant pronounced them married, Julian kissed Tasha thoroughly while Ella giggled between them. The small group of guests erupted in applause and cheers. At the reception on the terrace, with fairy lights twinkling and soft music playing, Tasha danced with Julian while Maria held Ella. "How does it feel to be Mrs. Pierce?" Julian asked. "Perfect," Tasha said. "Complete. Like I've found where I belong." "You have. Here with us. Always." They danced until sunset painted the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. Then Julian took Ella from Maria, and the three of them danced together, Ella bouncing in her father's arms, all of them laughing. Robert approached with champagne for the toast. "To Mr. and Mrs. Pierce," he said, his voice warm. "May your love continue to inspire and transform everyone around you." Everyone raised their glasses, and Tasha felt overwhelmed with gratitude. For every person here who'd supported her journey. For the second chance she'd been given. For the family she'd found. Later that night, after guests had left and Ella was asleep, Julian and Tasha stood in their bedroom in the main house, Tasha's wedding dress hanging on the closet door, Julian's suit jacket tossed over a chair. "I have something for you," Julian said, pulling out an envelope. "We said no gifts. It's not a gift. It's a partnership." He handed her the envelope. Inside were legal documents establishing the Tasha Monroe Pierce Free Medical Clinic for underserved populations. Fully funded. Ready to open. "Julian," Tasha breathed. "This is your dream. The clinic you talked about. Free care for homeless people, uninsured families, anyone who needs help. I purchased a building downtown, hired an administrative team, ordered equipment. You can open it whenever you're ready. After residency or during if you want to do volunteer hours. It's yours. Tasha couldn't speak through her tears. She threw her arms around him, overwhelmed with love and gratitude. Thank you, she finally managed. Thank you for believing in me, for loving me, for giving me everything. You gave me everything first, Julian said. I'm just trying to keep up. They held each other in the quiet bedroom, two people who'd found each other against impossible odds, who'd built something beautiful from tragedy and loss. Tomorrow they'd continue building. Tasha's residency, the clinic, raising Ella together, supporting each other's dreams. But tonight they were just two people in love, grateful for second chances and the power of kindness to transform lives. 1 year later, Tasha stood in the nearly completed clinic downtown, watching workers install the last examination tables. The space had transformed from an empty warehouse into a bright, welcoming medical facility over the past 6 months. Waiting room with comfortable chairs, 6 exam rooms, a small procedure room, a pharmacy for free medications, even a children's play area. The sign outside read, Tasha Monroe Pierce Free Clinic. Healthcare for everyone. It's perfect, Beth said, appearing beside her. Beth had accepted a staff position at the clinic, choosing community medicine over a higher-paying hospital position. You built this, Tasha. We built this, Tasha corrected. You, me, Julian, everyone who believed in it. The clinic was scheduled to open next week. Tasha had recruited a team of volunteer physicians, nurses, and medical students eager to serve underserved populations. Dr. Mitchell had agreed to serve on the board of directors. The Pierce Foundation provided ongoing funding, ensuring the clinic could serve patients regardless of ability to pay. Tasha's phone buzzed. Julian, Ella and I are outside. Come see. She walked out to find Julian holding Ella, now almost 2 years old and chattering in complete sentences. But Tasha's attention fixed on what was behind them. A group of about 20 people, clearly homeless based on their clothing and possessions, standing on the sidewalk. What's going on? Tasha asked. An older man stepped forward. Are you Dr. Pierce? I'm Dr. Pierce, yes. We heard about this clinic. That it's free. That you help people like us. He gestured to the group. We wanted to say thank you. Before you even open. Thank you for seeing us. Tasha's throat tightened with emotion. She saw herself in these faces. The fear, the exhaustion, the desperate hope that someone might care. The clinic opens Monday. Please come. All of you. We'll help however we can. A woman in the group started crying. Really? No judgment? No paperwork we can't fill out. Really? Healthcare is a right, not a privilege. That's what this place is about. The group dispersed, some thanking her, others too overwhelmed to speak. Tasha watched them go, remembering what it felt like to be invisible and ignored. You're changing lives already, Julian said quietly, moving beside her with Ella. We're changing lives, Tasha corrected. This wouldn't exist without you. Mama Clinic? Ella asked, pointing at the building. Yes, baby. Mama's Clinic. Ella had been calling Tasha Mama for 6 months now, since the adoption finalized. Every time she said it, Tasha's heart swelled. That evening, the Pierce family attended a foundation gala, an annual event Julian hosted to raise additional funds for medical scholarships. Tasha wore an elegant green gown, finally comfortable at these events after a year of attending them as Julian's wife. She gave a short speech about her journey from homelessness to medical practice, about the importance of second chances and systemic support. The room was silent as she spoke, many people crying openly. Every person in this room has the power to change someone's life, she concluded. Not through grand gestures but through simple kindness. Through seeing people who are invisible to everyone else. Through offering help when someone is drowning. That's what the Pierce Foundation does. That's what the free clinic will do. And I hope you'll join us in building a world where no one has to choose between education and survival, between healthcare and housing. Thank you. The applause was thunderous. Donations flooded in. By the end of the night, the foundation had raised enough to fund 50 additional scholarships and support the clinic for 2 years. You're a natural at this, Julian said as they drove home, Ella asleep in her car seat. I just tell the truth. People respond to honesty. They respond to you. To your story. To proof that kindness works. Back home, they carried Ella to her bedroom, tucked her in, and stood watching her sleep as they did most nights. Hard to believe she was so sick once, Tasha murmured. Hard to believe a lot of things. That I found you. That you stayed. That we built this life together. Best decision I ever made. The clinic's opening day arrived with perfect weather and massive turnout. The waiting room filled immediately with patients who'd never had regular access to healthcare. Homeless individuals, uninsured families, elderly people on fixed incomes, undocumented immigrants afraid to seek help elsewhere. All welcome. All treated with dignity and respect. Tasha worked tirelessly, examining patients, diagnosing conditions, prescribing medications from the free pharmacy. Beth worked beside her, equally committed. Volunteer medical students rotated through, learning that good medicine meant serving everyone, not just those who could pay. An elderly homeless man came in with a persistent cough. Tasha examined him, ordered a chest X-ray from their portable machine, and diagnosed pneumonia that would have killed him without treatment. She admitted him to the hospital under the clinic's charity agreement, ensuring he got the care he needed. A young mother brought in her feverish toddler, terrified because she couldn't afford an emergency room visit. Tasha diagnosed a simple ear infection, provided antibiotics, and showed the mother how to administer them. The woman cried with relief and gratitude. A teenager came in alone, asking quietly about mental health resources. Tasha connected her with a therapist who volunteered at the clinic, ensuring the girl got support for depression and anxiety. By the end of the first week, they'd seen 300 patients. By the end of the first month, over 1,000. Word spread through the homeless community, through immigrant neighborhoods, through struggling families. The clinic became a beacon of hope. Dr. Mitchell visited one afternoon and walked through with obvious approval. "This is remarkable, Tasha. You're doing exactly what you talked about years ago. Serving people who fall through the cracks. It's what I should have had access to," Tasha said. "When my mother was sick, when I lost everything. I needed a place like this. And now hundreds of people have it because of you." 6 months after the clinic opened, Tasha graduated from her residency program. Top of her class, naturally. Dr. Mitchell offered her a dual position, attending physician at Lincoln Medical Center and medical director of the free clinic. She accepted immediately. The graduation ceremony was larger than medical school, with more family attending. Julian and Ella, of course. Robert, Maria, and Thomas. Beth and her clinic staff. Dr. Mitchell and his wife. Even Dean Shin attended, beaming with pride. "Dr. Tasha Monroe Pierce," the announcer called, and Tasha walked across the stage to accept her certificate of residency completion. She was officially a doctor now. Board-certified pediatrician. Attending physician. Medical director. Everything she dreamed of and more. At the celebration dinner that night, Julian stood to make a toast. 3 years ago, a homeless girl saved my daughter's life. She had nothing, had lost everything, had every reason to walk past that hospital window and not look back. But she stopped. She cared. She acted. And that moment of compassion changed all our lives. He looked at Tasha, his eyes shining. "You gave me Ella's life. I tried to give you back your future. But really we gave each other family. Love. Purpose. Everything that matters." He reached down and picked up Ella, who immediately wanted down to toddle over to Tasha. "Ella has something for you." Ella handed Tasha a drawing, childish scribbles that might have been people or might have been abstract art. "I made you, Mama. Happy Dr. Day." Tasha scooped her daughter up, holding her close, overwhelmed with love. "Thank you, baby. It's beautiful." Looking around the table at these people who'd become her family, Tasha felt complete. Oh. She thought about the girl she'd been, standing in the rain outside a hospital, choosing to risk everything for a stranger's baby. That decision had saved 2 lives, hers and Ella's. It had led her here, to this moment, to this family, to this life of purpose and meaning. "I want to say something," Tasha said, standing with Ella still in her arms. 3 years ago I had nothing. Julian, you gave me everything. But it wasn't just material support, though that was life-changing. You gave me something more important. You saw me. When the rest of the world looked away, when I was invisible and disposable, you saw me. You saw my worth, my potential, my humanity. That's the greatest gift anyone can give." She looked at everyone gathered. The clinic exists because we believe in seeing people. Every patient who walks through our doors, whether they have insurance or not, whether they have homes or not, whether they're citizens or not, they get seen. They get care. They get dignity. That's not radical. It's basic humanity. She raised her glass. To second chances. To families built on love. To hope that refuses to die. And to kindness always leading the way. "To kindness," everyone echoed, and the sound filled the room with warmth and promise. Later that night, after Ella was asleep and the house quiet, Julian and Tasha sat in the sunroom where they'd shared their first real conversation years ago. The same spot where Julian had held his dying daughter, where Tasha had begun to trust that good things could happen. "I have news," Tasha said. "I'm pregnant." Julian's face transformed with shock and joy. "Really? Are you sure?" "Took 3 tests. All positive. We're having a baby." He pulled her into a fierce hug, both of them crying happy tears. "This is incredible. Amazing. Perfect. I know. I'm terrified and excited and overwhelmed. You're going to be an amazing mother. You already are with Ella." "We're having a baby," Tasha repeated, letting the reality sink in. "Our family is growing." They held each other, thinking about the future. A new baby. Ella becoming a big sister. The clinic expanding. Their foundation helping more students. Years of love and purpose and making a difference. "Remember when you asked me if I was happy here?" Tasha said. "That first month. I remember. I'm more than happy. I'm grateful. I'm fulfilled. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." "So am I," Julian said. "You saved Ella's life, but you saved mine too. You reminded me that love continues. That life goes on. That hope matters." "Kindness led me to you," Tasha said. "Hope kept me going. And love gave me everything." She thought about the girl standing in the rain, the desperate father, the dying baby. About the miracle that brought them together. About choosing to act when it would have been easier to walk away. That moment had changed everything. One choice, driven by compassion and courage. One decision to see someone who needed help and refused to turn away. It had led here. To family, to purpose, to love that healed old wounds and created new joy. The miracle was complete. Not because a baby was saved, though that mattered immensely. But because 3 broken people, a homeless girl, a grieving father, and a sick infant, had found each other and built something beautiful. They'd become a family. They'd found home. And through their story, hundreds of others would find hope too. Through the clinic, through the foundation, through proof that kindness and love could triumph over loss and despair. Tasha Monroe Pierce, who'd once been invisible, now made sure everyone else was seen. Who'd once been hopeless, now gave others hope. Who'd lost everything, now had more than she'd ever dreamed possible. She'd saved a life, and in return, her own life had been saved. That was the greatest miracle of all.